start with introducing our chair, Ann Morrison, who's going to say a couple words, and then I'll come back with some updates on the committee and then do the introductions for our presenters today. Ann, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, everybody. It's nice to see you all on one of the last kind of nice days of the fall, I think. I'm doing great, and I hope you all are too. Thanks for being here this morning. And I wanted to just say thanks to those of you who I've seen out and about downtown on the square on State Street. I know I saw a bunch of Cullens yesterday. I'm trying to think of who I ran into yesterday when I was down here. But you are all leaders in the community. Downtown needs your support. DMI needs your support. Oh, I saw Chris yesterday, Chris Laurent, yeah, going into the building. So please come down, make a point to walk the square, walk State Street. Even if you're not comfortable in a restaurant, there's still plenty to see and plenty to do. And when people see you, they know that, again, that this is a place they want to be and a place they want to come back after we are past the worst of this pandemic. So just try to commit to coming downtown when you can, and I would love to see you. And I'm down here, and many of your DMI colleagues are as well. Jason is going to update you on we've got a lot going on economic development wise in the city and with various groups that are working on various initiatives to bring more energy back downtown. And Jason's going to update you on those and introduce the panel. So with that, I'm going to kick it back to you, Jason.
Thank you, Ann, very much. And it is good to see people downtown. I'll be down there most of the day today. So hopefully I'll see people around the streets as well. I hope you're all doing well and staying healthy, most importantly. I want to give a couple of quick updates on some bigger projects we're working on and see if there's anyone in this group that would like to participate in some of this important work. The first one is a conversation about housing, thanks to our board member, Katie Rist and Ann Morrison, who have helped lead the conversation on several topics that the city is discussing on how to bring more affordable housing, particularly using the zoning code. And they have a report on 7:30 to the Planning Commission earlier this year. A great report that listed a lot of strong recommendations that many of them members of DMI agree with. So we're working with the city about how to move that forward. So if you're interested in those housing conversations, please let us know. It does sound like these things are going to start to percolate up through the city in the next few months. So if you're interested in those conversations, please just send me an email and we'd love to have you take part. For any of those who are interested in the actual what happened at the meeting, Planning Commission's a special meeting on 7:30. There's a great PowerPoint presentation that explains a lot of it in Legistar. I can also send that information to you if you are interested. Also working with our friends, Bill Connors, who I see is on here today on potential setback resolution. There are 0 setbacks and developments in downtown, most of downtown, and on commercial corridors. The city, through the Urban Forestry Task Force, is looking at potentially adjusting those from 0 setback to 5-foot setbacks on any terrace smaller than 15 feet. This is obviously an issue we're watching very closely with our friends at Smart Growth. And Eric from Hovde, Bill Connors, Sue Springman, Nathan from our board, and Reinhardt are paying very close attention to this issue, and we've met with Alders, Revere, and Heck on it. If you'd like to know more about this potentially very influential resolution, please send me an email as well. We'll get you information. We'll get you tied in as we continue those conversations. No actual pending resolution yet, but they do expect something to come in the next few months. And last but certainly not least, the item that Ann was discussing, the largest part of our work right now is a group called the Downtown Group, which Ann and several other people sit on this committee, who are discussing the short and long-term goals and ideas for downtown. It's a really interesting, very diverse group of stakeholders, many of whom are part of downtown for a long time, many who have not. So it's a different group looking at these issues and how we move downtown forward to be a vibrant, economic, and equitable downtown for everybody. It's been great conversations. We've divided up into 3 task forces from the group, one in activation and programming, one in equity, and one in economic development. So obviously economic development is closest to our heart here. It's chaired by our own member, Amy Supple, who has lots of experience in bringing groups like this together, most particularly at Destination Medical in downtown Rochester, Minnesota. So really looking at what are the long and the short term things we can work on. So if you're interested in participating in those conversations, send me an email as well. So I guess, Ann, the takeaway is if you're interested in any of it, just send me an email. That seems to be what you can do. So hopefully my email box is full after this meeting. Now, without further ado, we want to get to our very important presentation today, a subject that's very important for the quality of life, the economic development, the inclusiveness. It really takes all of DMI in when we talk about music and how important it is, bringing all different types of music to downtown and creating a great atmosphere. Kind of an interesting conversation now when there's not as much live music happening, but I think this is the right time to start planning. The team that we have here today has a very, very strong plan to how to move forward and is looking for this group's help in a myriad of ways. We're going to start off with Carol Schaefer. Carol, you guys know Carol. She's on this committee, longtime DMI board member with Freedy, creator of the Downtowners, formerly with Smart Growth. Just Carol, I don't know what else to say, just does amazing, amazing work. We are also joined by Dr. Karen Reese from Nehemiah, who is one of the founders of UCAN, the Urban Community Arts Network, a wonderful advocate in our community, longtime helper of downtown. So we're very excited to have Dr. Reese here as well. And we have Rob Dees Franklin, who has probably the greatest title in Madison, a Bubblarian for the Madison Public Library. Just very active, also co-founder of UCAN, the Urban Community Arts Network. Have a very important discussion here today. They're going to do a short presentation, and then we're going to open it up for Q&A after. We've got a decent sized group, so if you have questions at the end, either ping me in the chat and I can unmute you, or we can just raise your hand function through the manage participants, or you can literally just raise your hand, but because there's so many people, I can't see everybody, so you might have to do one of the first two. But we're going to start, I believe, with Carol. I already forgot who was starting. Okay, good.
Yep.
1 out of 3, I got it right. It was either you or Rob. I couldn't remember. I knew it wasn't Dr. Reese. So, Carol.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having us this morning to talk about this endeavor. I'm pretty excited about it. I'm just going to give a really brief background of how I kind of got involved. This has been going on for years. I'm one of the newer involvees, if you will, on it. And late last year, Walt Jankowski, who's a part of the advisory group, as well, and I were chatting at a Downtowners, and he mentioned that he was involved in this Madison Music City initiative, and I'm like, hold up, wait, what is this Madison Music City?
What?
Many of you know me, but you may not know how into the music world I really am. Someone who has played multiple instruments, been in a couple of different bands. I've served on the Symphony League Board of Directors for over 10 years. In 2019, I went to over 60 concerts in that year alone, ranging from the Sylvie to Bree Stevens to the Alliant Energy Center to Mickey's. So I'm very, very active in the music world, and it's a huge passion for me. So when he kind of gave me the background of, you know, there was a task force that was really looking at the lack of equity in the musical opportunities for our artists of color and how they're exposed to and able to participate in the music scene in Madison, it was kind of an eye-opener for me, something you may have been tangentially aware of, but really brought it to the forefront. And from this task force, one of the things that was recommended is, and this is what this has kind of come out of, is creating a Madison Music City, working with a group called Sound Diplomacy out of London, who's done this across the country with other communities. And I thought Madison is just such a great place to have this happen. It's also a great economic development tool, which is why I thought it was a good fit for us to talk here, in the sense that part of the goal over the next 5 years, as Karen and Rob are going to get into, is, you know, to establish a baseline. Obviously 2020 is absolutely set the music industry and the entertainment industry back on its heels, and it's been absolutely devastating. But we're, you know, hoping to set the stage, if you will, for a resurgence when this comes out, that's going to be for everyone, and it's going to be a 5-year plan. We want to engage all the stakeholders in getting this going. So we really, at the end of it, want to have an inclusive, vibrant, and envy-inducing music scene here in Madison that creates jobs and elevates our artists of color and across all genres, and really truly makes Madison Music City. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Karen and Rob to give you the nuts and bolts of how this could happen, and then we'd love to have everyone's participation, and anyone who wants to get involved, we'll be super excited to share how you can do that. So, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, Carol. So we're really looking forward to talking with you today about what we've been calling Madison Music City. And you heard from Carol already. Rob and I are going to give you a little bit of an overview of racial equity in Madison, and then some of the plans that we have for this project. And then we hope to have a good amount of time for Q&A, so we can hear your thoughts and hear what kinds of questions you have as well. So I'll start by giving you sort of the why. Why music? Why do we want to focus on this with all of the things going on in this time? The first point I want to make is that when we think about music, oftentimes we're thinking about either just music in schools or going to concerts and nightlife, but music really plays a key role in our overall economy. And we want you to think of this more like a music ecosystem. So music, including both live and recorded music, intersects with a number of different sectors: education, community engagement, media, and governance. We're all using music everywhere in almost every part of our lives. And then not only does this cover this broad range of sectors, but then we also see music popping up, you know, big money in sports, big money in transportation, obviously the nightlife. Our hospitality depends on music for bringing tourism and supporting restaurants. Also our health and well-being. Where would a lot of us be without music, especially during, I don't know, in this crazy time with this pandemic? I don't know where I would be without being able to escape to use music. And we've seen that happen all over the country, you know, from the very beginning in March, a lot of national artists coming on screen to do virtual performances to lift spirits, if you will. Music is everywhere. It is a huge revenue generator for our communities. Billions of dollars are raised. This is a projection from Goldman Sachs that in 2030 will be, you know, well over $100 billion in the music industry, just looking at live music, recorded music, and publishing. And Shane Shapiro, who runs Sound Diplomacy, who's the company we're hoping to work with, says that it must be considered in land use, regeneration, tourism, education, economic development policies, basically everywhere. So what does this look like for our cities? You know, if we look at a city like Nashville, which obviously is a giant music city, that's, you know, has been a main part of their identity. You know, as of 2018, we can compare the number of jobs developed and the economic impact of music and entertainment, which is on par with sectors like manufacturing, tourism, and healthcare. And so with just 60,000 jobs, we're generating $10 billion in economic impact. Coming a little closer to home to the Midwest, in 2014, there's a study on the music economy in central Iowa. And in this 5-county region, they were looking at a total of about 1,300 jobs, bringing in 39 million in labor income and 65 million in regional value. Now, this study only included directly related music opportunities, such as performance, recording, and instrument manufacturing. But what this does not, this very large impact does not include, is what's going on with bars. What about music venues, restaurants, hotels? What is the impact? What is the real or number of jobs that are coming out of these sectors as well? So we really want to think about this as a whole when we look to see what is the value and why do we really want to work on this now. To get into some of the local context, we want to help you understand that even though Madison has a very vibrant music scene, it's not equitable. And this is something that our organization has been working on for well over a decade. Other people worked on it before we came on the scene too. And it's something that we are really anxious to see some forward progress on in the next year or two. Some definitions here. So we focus on the hip hop community, not exclusively. We're really looking at artists of color, specifically Black artists, but Urban Community Arts Networks focuses on hip hop. But I want to give you just a couple of definitions here so you understand what we're talking about in terms of equity. So there are 3 basic areas of hip hop artists in the Madison area. One area would be our college artists. So these would be artists associated with UW, associated with the First Wave program generally. And First Wave, if you're not familiar, was you know, a very innovative program, one of the first in the nation at UW, where students could essentially, it's a very competitive program, get a scholarship and get a major basically in hip hop and music studies. Artists that come along with the First Wave label or the UW label come with sort of that trust and respect that the UW brings its other presenters. And so there's not as much of a risk associated with bringing college artists. There are national and regional touring artists, and these are bigger artists that would go to venues like the Sylvie, like the Majestic, Club Liquid has a lot of hip hop artists coming through. The catch with these artists is that they're generally in venues with a fairly high ticket price, and most of the marketing generally goes out through channels that are going to target the white college students. So we don't see a lot of the local community here. Anyone who's not in these two categories are what we refer to as local artists. So these are people who, some are doing this as a hobby, some are doing this as their career, and they're living, working, paying taxes, participating in our local community. So these are the artists we're really focusing on and looking to support through this project. I just want to give you a little bit of a sense of what we do at Urban Community Arts Network and in our collaborations with Madison Public Library. We've been running some of you may be aware, a summer concert series. Obviously we couldn't do it this year, but we, since about 2013, have run a series of shows at the top of State Street on Saturdays in the summer to take hip hop outdoors, to show people, you know, what is the music really like, to show the artistic value, and bring more community members into the know about our really rich and valuable hip hop scene in Madison. We have professional development opportunities where we provide workshops and other things for local artists to build up their professional repertoire and understand how they can build their business. And then we have a collaboration with the Madison Public Library called Media Academy that Rob, this is Rob's baby here. And we focus not only on how do we teach music, but also music related technologies. And we bring in middle schoolers and high schoolers who, this is some self-directed experiential learning so that these kids can, you know, really engage in these technologies and figure out how that might impact their future. One of the bigger things that we've done over the past 10 years is work on a task force on equity in music and entertainment. This came on the heels of several years of advocacy, meeting with the police department, meeting with the mayor's office in public safety, with the Arts Commission, economic development, civil rights, all kinds of groups came together to talk about how can we fix this equity issue, because we don't see, we don't have any hip hop focused clubs or music venues, and it's very difficult for hip hop artists to get time and opportunity on stages and festivals locally. The task force focused on several things. One was identifying the root cause of this inequity, which the group of about 11 members quickly identified was related to systemic racism and bias. The task force explored best practices, looked at long-term and short-term strategies. We were tasked with doing a cost analysis, but due to time and very limited resources given by city staff, we weren't able to complete that part. But we identified a number of different areas to build out music equity, and those areas include community and culture. So does the public really know what hip hop is? Does the public know that hip hop is a culture in itself more than just music? We've seen shows that have been over policed by the Madison Police Department and have had little success in mitigating that. Also, most media coverage that we get or over the years has been, you know, we're talking about a positive event or a fundraiser, and the news article almost always begins with hip hop has a troubled past in Madison, which, you know, kind of sets the stage for a negative perception of what's going on. Also, we want, again, people to have access to venues, but also to processes to get liquor licenses if they want to start a venue, or how do I throw a party in the park? Do I know how to do that? And then finally, we've had a lot of conversation about transportation. In our community, you know, the buses stop running at 11, our downtown's open till 2 or 2:30. How can we ensure that people have access and can safely get from point A to point B? So the task force also addressed the current narrative for Madison hip hop. And there are a number of articles I could provide you to help paint this picture. If you are curious, I'd be happy to provide a list of resources. But over the years, we've heard about, you know, downtown bars filtering out hip hop from their jukeboxes. Over the years, we've seen off and on different bars and clubs like, you know, State Street Brats or Whiskey Jack's having pretty racist dress codes pop up outside their door, like no white t-shirts, no athletic gear, oversized jerseys, things like that, that are really trying to define more of a hip hop style and designed to exclude people of color. So in Madison, the current narrative is that hip hop is code for Black. We use this word and other words as sort of a cover when we're talking about things related to racism, so we don't appear racist. But really, when we dig beneath the surface, as the task force found, we really are talking about groups of Black people and other people of color gathering. Hip hop also, the current narrative is that it's a public safety threat. So one of the reasons we have trouble booking shows and finding opportunities is because there's this widely held belief that hip hop artists or rap artists will bring violence to the places they're in, will cause problems for venue owners, and you know, people don't want to see that. And so we have done extensive studies on this and proved that that is actually a myth. The data does not support that. Also, there's the narrative that hip hop adds no value for the local arts community. So throughout this project, in a little bit today, we're hoping that you understand the current narrative. We want to change that. Hip hop is arts and culture. Hip hop is a benefit and a unifier, and hip hop adds immense value to the local arts community. So with that, let us tell you a little bit about the plan, and I'm going to hand it over to Rob to talk about the initial framing here.
Thank you, Karen. So ladies and gentlemen, we have 4 parts of our plan to be able to implement, and if you see on the screen, the 4 areas are equity, economic impact, partnership, and implementation. First look at equity. You know, the idea is making sure that we have access for all artists. One of the experiences that I've had in being a musician in Madison is that, you know, I've been fortunate that I've been able to get on a lot of stages, but I look around and see other artists of color that are just as talented that are not having those opportunities. So let's get the idea of having a truly progressive community is to have everyone involved at some point. So therefore, we're looking at equity. The second part we look at is economic impact. You know, to be able to have a thriving arts and music scene would help the overall economic impact overall. So I think it's very important that we look at that the way that money can be brought in. The third thing would be partnership. To be able to interact with different organizations to make the whole scene in general thrive. So that would be our partnership goal. And then the fourth thing would be implementation. Implementation will be the strategy to make things better for everyone, and those are the 4 things that we are definitely striving for in our plan.
Thanks, Rob. And so to take a little bit of a broader look at that, you know, we're looking at aligning stakeholders, and when we talk about stakeholders, we're talking about everyone who's impacted in the music economy. We're starting pretty specifically with artists and people who are in supporting roles. Like, I am a musician, but I don't necessarily participate actively as a musician in the music scene, but I help with organizing and planning. Also promoters, venues, music production companies, and the fans. We got to include the fans in this voice. Building strategies for equity, identifying the barriers, how do we break them down? And then the most important part of this is I've been, you know, I'm a researcher. I am aware of the vast number of studies that we do in this city, and I feel very strongly in making sure that these don't just sit on the shelf, but if we do a study, it's to intentionally engage in a solid concrete plan that brings about change. And that's evident in the task force report that we presented. We've been working very hard on bringing those recommendations to light. This plan that we're proposing to you comes directly from the work done by the task force. And so essentially what we're doing is starting with the community engagement concept. This is part of that, to make sure that the most people possible understand what's going on and are aware of the process. We'll do extensive asset mapping. We'll do some focus groups and roundtables. This will involve a pretty detailed economic impact analysis specifically on our music scene. That's something that we don't have currently in the Madison area. We don't really know how many shows do we have a year, what kind of revenue are they bringing in, how many jobs is this creating at each of our venues. We've never done a detailed analysis of just what's going on in Madison. We also want to look to the music ecosystem. So how about a regulatory analysis? What policies are potentially helping or hurting us from a city perspective? How are we compared to other very popular music cities similar to our size? So, you know, this is a really detailed process that will be shared between sound diplomacy and with the local community. So basically what this looks like is we take a local effort that we've been working on, for about a decade now, and combine it with a Music City expert. And as Carol mentioned, sound diplomacy has not only done these studies all over the nation, but also worldwide. There's a particularly strong equity-focused report that they put out in Vancouver, and they've had pretty big results. So some cities even, being able to fund someone like a night mayor whose job it is to walk around downtown, take care of the nightlife, make sure that needs are getting met, make sure things are staying safe, and of course making sure that everything's equitable. This is the perfect time to do something like this. Musicians aren't working, venues are struggling, but at the same time, we're going to reopen soon, and we want to be able to do that strongly. And when we do that, we want to be able to ensure that everyone can come in. Now, part of the problem of the shutdown here is that people are operating pretty much within their own networks to do things like virtual concerts and performances, but also pooling the resources they already have access to. It's very difficult to break into other areas. And so right now, we're seeing even a bigger disparity in access to music opportunities. So people that have the opportunity and technological ability right now are able to form some income streams, but people who haven't traditionally had access to those networks and technologies are not only not being able to practice their art, but having to abandon their art to be able to provide for their families during this tough time. So we really want to dig in during this time when people aren't as busy on music and really kind of rework the plan so that when we rebuild and reopen, we reopen stronger and we reopen for everyone. The whole project, including implementation, will cost us about $300,000, and this is going about half into the community and about half to our consultant, Sound Diplomacy. So it's really important to us that we don't just pay an outside expert, and Sound Diplomacy also says that they don't want to just be calling the shots on this plan without local input, because without that, it's meaningless. So this really is a true partnership. Urban Community Arts Network has pulled together this team that includes Carol, Walt Jankowski, David Boyd, Mark Frere from Dane Arts, Karen Wolf, and Angela Puerta from the Planning Department and Madison Arts Commission to really get this work done. So what are the next steps? Basically what we're doing now is we're kind of in this, we're in this fundraising and community engagement phase. So we do have a survey that will allow you to let us know, do you want to be involved in this? How do you want to be involved? Do you want to just stay on our mailing list? Would you like to actually help out with this? Take on a certain role in the work that we're doing. So I will drop the link to the survey in the chat. And so if any of you are interested, you can take that. It's not something you want to do now, but you want to learn more, you can go over to our website and you can check out the scope of the project, as well as learn a little bit more about our background. You can also email me at info@ucanmadison.org. And you can email questions or we can set up a time to talk. I'm more than happy to talk to you about it. On our website also is the task force report, so I'd highly recommend checking that out and just taking a look at the framing and the recommendations, because this work impacts a number of different areas in Madison's economy in general. It's not just focused to nightlife, it's not just focused to music. And then of course we are also looking at, as I mentioned, hitting our fundraising goals. To get the work started, we really just need $50,000. We've gotten, we have 15,000 that's pledged so far, and we had a pretty big win in the city room tax recently, where $45,000 was approved. Now that's of course subject to appropriation. We're pretty confident that we can get half of that at the beginning of the year, but obviously no one knows what's going to happen with our hotels over the years. So that money will be somewhat dependent on that. So we really are looking in talking to a variety of supporters in this. So those are some of the things that you can do. And with that, I'm going to stop talking and ask you what questions you have. Oh, and I'd also, I guess before we take questions, I'm wondering, Rob, do you want to just add some of your own experience as a musician in the Madison area pre and during COVID?
Yeah, it's kind of like I was talking about earlier. the idea of having a progressive community means that all voices are heard. And one thing that I did notice, I've always noticed, is that, for the doors that I have been able to get into, there were so many other talented artists that are not able to get in those doors and get that access. And I think that it's important that we build that bridge to be able to have all those voices heard. And that will only help the idea of having that progressive community. So that I'll keep that short, and we'll get to the questions. But like I said, it's all about making sure that everyone is included, everyone has an opportunity, and everyone has an access.
Well, Rob, Carol, Dr. Reese, thank you for this great presentation. This is very important for downtown. The music scene, the nightlife, this is a huge part of our economy. It's a huge part of our quality of life. So we want to make sure we get time for questions. If you have questions, either ping me in the chat or use the manage participants function and raise your hand that way, since I can't see everyone on the screen. Or you can raise your hand, but again, I may not see you. First question is about your idea of a nightmare that already popped up in the chat. And DMI's done some work, and very early work with a group called the Responsible Hospitality Institute that really looks at the sort of holistic nightlife and how important it is for the economy, how important it is for the residents of the city. How does that sort of fit in with the work that you guys are doing, Sound Diplomacy and UCAN?
Can you tell me a little bit more about the hospitality work?
Yeah, absolutely. So a nightmare, like you said, is someone that really looks at the whole nightlife and how it all sort of works together, functions. You have the right food, you have the right music, do you have the right ambiance, everything, lighting, and all of it around there. How does that sort of fit in to create, really strong and robust night scene, which I think is really important for cities on, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights traditionally. These are really key, not only for residents, but for tourists, but I also think recruiting of new talent to our city. I mean, young people, look, one of the best things we have, 25 to 34-year-olds, we have the highest educated 25 to 34-year-olds behind Boston in America. But they want things to do at night. Like, I'm turning 44, I probably don't want to go out at 2 in the morning, but they may want to. How do you do that responsibly? So how does that fit in your model?
Absolutely. I mean, you said it right there. I mean, bringing in something like a nightmare whose job it is to stay awake during those times and really monitor what's happening with entertainment in our city. Right now, these issues are mostly addressed, on a city level during the day with people that don't necessarily participate actively in our nightlife. And it's really important that for us to have a vibrant nightlife and for us to also solve problems that come up, like the one that we're talking about now, we really need someone who is deeply engaged and connected to the issue that they're working on. So they understand the ins and outs, they understand the dynamics and the politics, and they can, come up with or broker equitable solutions that are happening. So as part of the work that we're doing and the work that Sound Diplomacy will do with us is this music ecosystem analysis and economic impact analysis. So really getting into how are things set up right now and what do we really need to make it vibrant and to make our city competitive with some of the local cities. How did we keep people from going to Chicago to see their music scene? How do we keep people here? How do we draw talent here? And then, overall, how do we make sure that everybody wants to come downtown? There's a lot of people downtown on the weekends, at night, participating in opportunities. But, as we've noticed recently, there's not a lot of people of color who are engaging in this. We've noticed a large increase on State Street recently with all of the art that's going on, that has been welcoming to communities of color. How do we harness that? How do we make sure that that doesn't go away? Rob, do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, man. I just think that we the more exposure and the more. Sorry, can you hear that?
It's okay.
Early in the morning on State Street. Yeah. So just having that be involved and get more people on board. Go ahead, Kim. I'm sorry.
Perfect. So the next question, really great question while they're doing something outside of Rob's building there. Is there a city that is a good model for Madison to copy? Size-wise, Vancouver is obviously a very large city, but other cities that you guys have followed, that Sound Diplomacy has followed, that could be a good model for us?
Yeah, Rob, do you want to take that first, since you started on you did that analysis for the task force?
Well, yeah, I mean,
we can hear you fine.
Okay. Yeah, there are other cities, obviously cities like Austin, Portland, Seattle, Indianapolis, Tulsa. They all have comparative models, and you can look at them, and we do have that kind of information in the task force report. So, yeah.
Yeah, and then working with Sound Diplomacy, they've been in a number of different U.S. cities of different sizes, so they'll help us with that. But the one thing I do want to mention is that in the task force report, we didn't necessarily find a city who was working with a focus on racial equity in the music scene. So we see people who are working on making their music scenes better and, increasing like infrastructure and access and making sure that musicians can get paid, but it's still happening in a way that sort of maintains the status quo and essentially excludes musicians of color from participating. So we really want to be innovative. We want to be leaders in that area, and essentially put Madison on the map as as a place with some of the largest Black-white disparities in the entire country. We can be innovative in this area and show how we can reverse those things.
I think a follow-on question from that is, have you seen, I think that's amazing, you guys are being pioneers. I think the timing is right. We're at this inflection point where so much of this can happen. Have you seen other cities with a focus on that Sound Diplomacy has worked with, but are you guys really pioneering, sort of pushing with the local on the UCAN side, really focusing so heavily on equity?
Yeah, we're the only city that I'm aware of that has been so specifically focused on the equity part. Now, that said, Sound Diplomacy does make sure to include an equity analysis in all of the work that they do, which is one of the reasons that we were drawn to working with that group. Not just equity, but they've been, as I mentioned, they've been really respectful and responsive to the dynamics of our community. So, they would have quoted doing all the work, including the community engagement for us, but we were pretty adamant about, we have to do this ourselves because people know us and we know the dynamics in Madison. Madison doesn't necessarily want an outsider coming in and, trying to tell us what to do. So we're going to work on figuring this out ourselves. Some other cities that they've worked in and that the model has been successful in include Indianapolis, Huntsville, Alabama, Tulsa, some in St. Louis. So some cities that are big, and Rob mentioned Austin, for example. So some cities that are different sizes, but when we look at it, we'll look to see, just because a city's big doesn't mean it doesn't have a similar function or personality that Madison does. So we'll kind of look at those things about, how is our music system set up? How is there an infrastructure for supporting entrepreneurs and musicians who are doing this as a career to make sure that they can get paid and aren't just paid in free promotion, as we often see here. So, we're looking at a number of factors all over the country and even some all over the world to make sure that we're getting the best information, and then looking to see specifically how does this apply locally and what specific principles are in line with Madison's identity and the things that we want to accomplish.
I don't know, Carol, did you want to add something? You came off from mute. I didn't know if you wanted to chime in.
I did, and then it went away.
Hey,
it was fleeting.
You can blame that one exclusively on me. I wanted to ask everyone to join us at 8 a.m., the DMI special. So, your coffee. The next question is a great one from our friend Pam Christensen for Rob specifically. Where are you, Rob? And can you tell us about the amazing photos behind you? I wanted to ask the same question myself.
Oh, okay. I actually live on the 100 block of State Street, so I am on State Street. As the street cleaners are going by, that's why I was like freaking out. So yeah, as far as the photos, these are photos that I created at the Bubbler. So it was a project that I did when I moved in years ago. So yeah, there you go. Influences.
I love it. If you guys don't know about the Bubbler, you got to check out what the amazing work that Rob and the team are doing at the library. It's just really, really innovative stuff all happening right at the downtown library. We have time for more questions. Anyone else with questions? We've had a couple already come in. Anyone else with questions, either just ping me in the chat or just raise your hand. I guess my next question is nice shout out for the Madison Public Library from Jenny Jeffers. So yes, we love us some Library Foundation. We love us the library. We are so lucky to have such a brilliant library right on State Street, right across the street from a wonderful arts venue in the Overture Center. So if you do have questions.
Shout out, Jen. Hello.
Oh, sorry, Rob. What was that, Rob?
I was just giving a shout out to Jen.
Normal office mates, the two, they may not see each other as much as we're all living in different. So if you have questions, let me know. The next question I have is how important is it to get groups like DMI, groups that we are members, corporations involved in this work? How important is it for it to be successful?
It's critical. For this work, we have to take a multi-sector approach. We need everybody involved in this. You know, as we talked about at the beginning, our music ecosystem, you know, touches all of us in one way, shape, or form. It's not just our bars on State Street. It's also our festivals. It's what we hear on our local radio stations. It's what people are listening driving down the street. It's what you have at your wedding or your bar mitzvah or you know, baby dedication. I mean, music is in every area of our lives. And so how are we supporting not only the musicians who are making the music, but looking into all of the supporting roles that come into play? So for example, when I'll take just a little bit of tangent and then come back, but what happens with Madison hip hop, and has happened over the last couple of decades, is this cycling. So we go through kind of this 2 to 4 year process where, you know, people are building up their work, they're collaborating, there's shows happening, they're recording their music, they're selling their music, they're touring, and then everything grows, and then something will happen at a bar, like a fight or an incident, and then that makes the newspaper, and then everyone stops booking hip hop for 6 months to a year, and then the process slowly rebuilds itself. A number of things happen during that time. Number one, the community is fragmented. All of those collaborative relationships that were formed are going to be halted or at least significantly stalled, stalling the progress. That fragments the community. So relationships that we're forming, if there's no gathering place for people, it's difficult to maintain relationships. Social media just isn't it. Also, the amount of money that people lose when this happens is astronomical. So for example, you know, booking events as a promoter, you know, if you're packing out even the high noon, one weekend a month, you have the potential to make a couple of $1,000s. Also, you're paying a DJ. The people who are performing are paying a studio engineer to record. They're paying an engineer to mix and master their work. They're paying a graphic designer to do the flyers, the programs. Obviously, the venue is serving drinks, making money off of alcohol. Security staff are getting involved. Then we have radio ads. In some circumstances, we have caterers who are providing food to events that are happening. I mean, there's all kinds of sectors that are impacted by music events. And in the hip hop industry in particular, we, you know, every time we have a shutdown, individuals lose thousands of dollars, literally. And it's devastating, especially in a city, again, where we're talking about these extreme racial disparities that we have. And, you know, people of color are often encouraged into entrepreneurial roles to fight some of these disparities. But then when you're, you know, you're owning your own business and it's affected so significantly by the racial dynamics in the city, you know, it kind of drives you out of that area. So we really need, so for that reason, we need everyone. Another reason we need everyone is we need everyone's input. An economy doesn't work with only one side of the story being told. We need everyone who's participating in this economy to have a voice in this process. We need to know what the experiences are, what the desires are, and then, you know, what are people willing to do to support it? Also, we need people to understand fully the equity issue, understand that it's not just a hot topic for the day, that this is something that's been going on for decades, before hip hop even, with jazz clubs in Madison, like, you know, Pearlie's on Park Street, Mr. P's on Belt Street, and the impacts, you know, with over-policing and problems that those venues have even had. We haven't figured out how to solve those problems yet. So we need your wisdom and expertise in how to build these out. Oftentimes artists aren't necessarily the most savvy, you know, business people. And so we need that expertise, that guidance to not only make this an equitable art scene, but how do we make it a profitable art scene and a place where we're closing the economic opportunity gap by providing these opportunities. So there's so many reasons why we want to engage with this group. Those are several of them. Anything to add, Carol or Rob?
Yeah, I did remember now. My thought came back. It flew by again. But to that economic development point, part of the reason that we wanted to talk to this group, and we touched on it briefly when Jason, you mentioned that we have the most highly educated group of 35 to 44-year-olds. We've got this downtown. If you think about what's happened to the downtown, and I mean, this is a broader, more than just the downtown, but even looking at what's happened with, the folks that have come to town, if there isn't a music scene, if there isn't a food scene, if there isn't, something for people to want to do downtown, and I know what we're dealing with in 2020 is highly unusual, and hopefully when we come back, it'll be a different, but we have to make sure that we come back strong, we come back with a city for everyone, and that in terms of drawing people for employment, for keeping people downtown as residents because of the things we can offer there and the opportunities for everyone. I mean, I think it's just extremely critical to get everybody involved now, because it's gonna, it's gonna be a long road ahead of us, but we want it to have a really clear path forward that we can all do together to make Madison, bring Madison back and beyond. So I think the economic development piece can't be emphasized enough in terms of what that does beyond just the love of music and it being a really amazing thing. It's got a genuine impact on the city overall. So
I think that's a really great point. I mean, it's time to reimagine, right? And we can reimagine what it kind of looks like with everybody and how powerful that'll be. It dovetails so well with our annual dinner speaker, Heather McGee, just a few weeks ago. And we want to say that, we are invested in building this relationship. You guys have come to other committees, Mark Richardson on our board, and, many people have really taken an interest in trying to help as much and build the relationships now. I think it's important to acknowledge Diane Morgenthaler, who's on the call now too, with Destination Madison. And this has been a big issue for them. And when you want to talk economics, let's talk tourism, right? Just down, I mean, it's $4 billion a year industry in Dane County, and 300 million of that is downtown. So a quarter of that share is spent downtown, and a lot of that is based on music and what the power could be if we had even more people. So I know Diane is on. I don't want to just call on her, but I'm sure this is an important issue for them, and we've all met together. So I want to make sure to acknowledge Diane here as well. Question, we got time for a few more questions. We got one more that came in from Rob, from Jenny. Any interest in supporting younger artists under 21, as so many of them come through the Madison Public Library's Media Academy? How do we bring that forward even farther? Question for Rob.
Well, one of the things I think you first of all need to understand that hip hop is a culture, and part of our goal is, as older artists and older representatives of the hip hop community, is that we do work with younger artists to train them, and we do try to do things like set them up with understanding the entrepreneurial element of it all. So we do work with younger artists, try to train them, get them to understand what it means to write a press release, or getting them to understand what it means to talk to a venue about booking a show. So yes, we do work with younger artists. We are developing. Actually, some of the kids who have come through our Media Academy program are now pretty central figures in the hip hop scene. So yes, we do work with younger artists. That would be Super Friends, James, Jalen, a couple of different other artists that I'm sure Jenny is familiar with. But yes, we do that, and that's part of what it is. And it kind of fits into the overall scheme of teamwork makes the dream work. So, we not only do we develop younger artists, but let's develop partnerships and all of that. So, yes.
Rob, can you give just a brief description of Media Academy?
Okay. So Media Academy is pretty much a project learning based program that happens over 8 weeks during the summer. Obviously, we didn't have it this summer, but it's where we focus on audio engineering, videography, social media marketing, and community activism. And this is where we try to help younger artists become, fully rounded artists and people that can participate. And we have not only just rappers and artists, but we have kids that go into video work. We have people that utilize these skills to, like I said, to learn how to develop the social media marketing element of it. And one of the biggest components of Media Academy is the community activism part. We not only teach these kids how to be artists, but we teach them to have a responsibility to help develop the community. And that's kind of what this is all about. And that's one of the things that I think that overall hip hop doesn't really get a light shown for that. And that's kind of one of the things that we strive to do. So we've been in existence for almost 4 years, and we keep going. Like I said, we didn't have it this year, but we will be back.
If you ever get a chance to check out their spaces at the public library, they're really cool facilities. Highly recommend getting a tour. I'm sure Jenny and the team, Greg and the team, can give you a tour once we can all go back into the library.
And I dropped a link in the chat, so please go check that out. You can see some of the actual products that have come out of Media Academy. They're pretty
actually,
amazing.
before I get to Ann's question, Karen, are we able to share the presentation? Because I've had several people asking you about.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'll get that from them, folks, and then I'll get all of the links in here, and we'll put that in an email to everyone after, so you have that information. Ann, you're up.
Yeah, quick question. Rob, you mentioned that the Media Academy is not happening this year, unfortunately. What is happening during the pandemic that we can support? Music is just such a great way. You know, people want folks to protest one way or protest another way, and some people are fans of painted boards and some people are not. But I think most of us agree that art is a great way to express ourselves. There's, you know, a lot of artists seem to be, you know, elevating their profile and making waves by writing songs about Breonna Taylor. I've seen the NPR coronavirus song contest, which is a great way for people to work through that trauma. I mean, what are the music ways that we're working through this trauma? Is there anything that we should be paying attention to right now and supporting aside from the overall effort that you're talking about?
I think one of the easiest things you can do is go to the UCAN site. We offer a number of different programs that we've done. We've done things like our Cyber Cipher, which has been getting different artists from different parts of the community kind of actually voice their things through the artistry. We're also looking at a number of virtual performances that we are currently working on the final touches right now, so we can start doing that as well. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's good to know things are still going on.
Rob, did we have that little music clip? I know we were going to do it as people were coming in, but we kind of had some technical stuff getting started. Did we have a musical clip?
Yeah, I can play part of this.
So we can do as our parting gift on the way out when we're done.
Yeah, I'll play it on the way out so we can.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, that's like the perfect time because we're running up against time anyway. A huge thanks to Karen. Because every time Rob would say something, like as he was talking, she would put a link up that responds right to it in the chat. So your chat game is fantastic, Karen. It's a really, really on point there. But the more important thing is that this is such an important project for so many parts of downtown. So we need to try to help support this as a downtown community. It's about creating a more equitable downtown, a vibrant economic downtown, a quality of life, bringing employees here. This matters to your employees. This matters to everything in downtown. You know, there are so many great partners on this. The city, UCAN, obviously, huge partner, Sound Diplomacy, Destination Madison. Let's help that list grow to get this work to happen. Because as we've said, this is really an inflection point for downtown. We can make choices to make this more equitable, inclusive, and a more vibrant downtown. This is the time to do that. We are so thankful for all of you for joining us today. We're especially thankful to our board member, Carol Schaefer, to Dr. Karen Reese from Nehemiah and UCAN, and Rob Franklin from Madison Public Library and from UCAN as well. Thank you so much for taking your time. We'll send out the presentation. We'll send out all the links to everyone. Again, if anyone has any comments or wants to help out with any of the more mundane parts of the economic development, the step backs, the housing, the things like that, send me an email. We'll get you on those lists. So I think we're going to end with some music. Thank you all so much for being here. Hope you have a great rest of the weekend. And now the sun is out.
Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate your time.
Have a great day. And as Jeff Tubbs quotes Rob Franklin, teamwork will make the dream work. I think right on. So hope you guys have a great rest of the day. And here's the music to end.
That's that Babe Ingram right there, man. And when it all fall down, lay forward, hard to see forward, no longer ignore it. Some folks talk value about the statue, but when our lives seem to have more value, we come in peace just to get some peace. A cry for justice pouring out in the streets. Should strike a nerve when you see this reality. Through this BS, yo, we just want humanity. From a code of mama, don't raise no fools. Now I'll be doggone, it's time to change the rules. Cause the only way we gon' deal with these problems is to come up for those held down on bottom. Touchy is a subject that need to be touched, but when we speak up, they say we doing too much. And if you say that you don't get what this about, we ask for a hand up, not a handout. So let's talk about it. 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 Give us a book, so we had the book. Solo Harriet systems are hating that us stole the book now. We just been saying it's not a good look. Started to catch it on tape, post live on the book. So what's finna happen now? It's all on the table. Tired of the lies and we tired of the labels. Before we get a chance, we always under aim. They say we play the card, but this not a game. This is the breaking of invisible chains. You dig our fame, but you won't dig the pain. Through all the mess, yo, it's time to invest. Access alone will alleviate stress. Major concern is these babies can't learn. When given a turn, then we all can earn. At the tipping point, it's time for the turn. This ain't revenge, just justice we earn. So let's talk about it. 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 Midwest living make it hard to live. How you remain positive through the negative. The great migration, subliminal frustration. It's like we moved up north to a new plantation. Some do their best just to kill our dreams. Like no white tees, caps and sagging jeans. Why don't you go and just say what you mean? No place for us, so we can't have a scene. We need black spots like we need black props. More wealth in the hood, more black shops. More health in the hood, more black docs. More black Wall Street with more black stocks. More thriving, build it up with all black blocks. It's about time like it's all black clocks. It's about time that we even it out. Seem like we got some things to be talking about. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Rob D is amazing. That is the best way to ever end a DMI committee meeting. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Carol, so much. We really appreciate it. Let's all support Rob, buy his music, support UCAN, support the Madison music. This is more important than ever. So thank you all for being here. Hope you have a great rest of the day and stay healthy. Talk to you soon. Bye now.
Thanks, everyone.